Okay.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Pink and Blue live show. We are so excited to have Dr. Alanna Golden here today. She is a mom of 2 boys, and she specializes in sleep, infant sleep, from 0 to 12 months. And she's going to teach us all about sleep hygiene, what that means, what it means to have your kid sleeping at night and being well rested and not taking too many naps, because you're saying that moms sometimes make that mistake and give themselves too many naps. Which I will admit, I have some sleep issues still, even though my kids are older. I wish you consulted 3-year-olds. And the neat thing of why we wanted to have you on is because OHIP covers it, right?
Yeah.
So tell us how it all works and what you do and a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a family physician by training, and I'm a mom of 2 young boys, and that got me interested in sleep because, like any other mom, being a first-time mom, I really had no idea what to expect and how much sleep babies needed, and I learned a lot on my journey, and coupled with being a doctor, I just felt like it was kind of a good merger of my interests and my expertise and my experience being a mom and physician.
Okay, and what do you see the most in the clinic, with the biggest sleep issues or problems that moms have when they come in?
So I think people come in, obviously, people come in with a number of different issues. They come in with issues with daytime sleep, their babies aren't napping, come in with nighttime issues, babies are waking frequently in the night or waking early in the morning, and wanting strategies around that. And for some parents, they're first-time parents, other parents may have had a dream sleeper with their first, and then their second just doesn't do what their first did, and so they're wanting some support around that. For even though they're a second-time parent, they're wanting support as if they were a first-time
That's
parent.
what happened to me.
Yeah.
My first was we call her the angel baby, or that sleep
Unicorn
book.
baby.
The
Yeah.
unicorn baby.
Yeah.
And the second still is an issue.
Yeah.
So I know that it was interesting to me because owning Pink and Blue, I think I know. No, I'm kidding. I thought that I knew, things to do with my daughter. Like you were saying, it's kind of obvious. Some parents already know. Keep the room warm, the temperature, not too much stimulation, the swaddling and all that. But it goes beyond that. Like, what are some of the things in the room or environmental things that can help a baby sleep?
So in terms of ideal sleep environment, so babies do best in a dark environment. So really, like pitch black rooms. So I tell parents that I have black garbage. No, well, nightlights are okay, but it shouldn't be anything that is overly distracting. So if you're going to have a nightlight, it should be somewhere low down. It shouldn't be at their eye level where they can look over the crib and see. But a dark room, pitch black, blackout curtains, and I even tell parents that I have black garbage bags taped to my baby's windows at night so that there's no light coming through. You want to make sure that the room temperature is such that the baby's not warm, and I give the example to parents that if you go on a vacation to the Caribbean and it's really, really hot and there's no air conditioning, that's not really an ideal environment to sleep in. And so anyone, not just babies, does better in a cooler environment. So it's better to have the baby dressed in something cool with maybe something like a sleep sack or a swaddle, depending on how old they are, and to have the room at a cooler temperature, like even somewhere around 20 degrees, which is a lot cooler than what most people think. They think babies need warm rooms and that, dress them in layers and that they're warm, but really ideal sleeping temperatures are cooler.
Right, and sometimes you could feel the back of their neck and see if they're sweaty and see what their temperature is.
Yeah.
I remember my doctor, when I went to my doctor, I said to him, what do I put her? I don't know what to dress the baby in. It's freezing cold. I'm from Florida and it's winter and it's free. He's like, what would you sleep in?
Yeah.
But people are my husband used to wrap her like a burrito. Everyone calls it burrito. But it was so tight and so uncomfortable. There's my daughter crying. She's still up. So what is sleep hygiene?
So sleep hygiene has to do with creating a foundation whereby the baby has the best chance to sleep successfully. So the most important thing in infant sleep medicine is that babies need to be well rested and not overtired. So many people underestimate how frequently babies need to sleep and for how long they need to sleep. And then they go to put the baby to bed at night and the baby protests going to sleep. There are frequent night wakings, early risings, and those are all a consequence of the baby being overtired. So one of the things that I tell parents, if they do nothing else, is to follow something called a wake window, which is a maximal period of wakefulness where a baby can be engaged and alert but not overtired. And by age, there are well-established wake windows. And the wake window increases as the baby ages by month. And if parents are able to follow and respect those wake windows, then babies are not overtired. And when you go to actually sleep train a baby, they're well rested. So they're not protesting because they're overtired. They're protesting because you're teaching them to fall asleep independently, and that's not something they're familiar with.
Right. And you were saying when we discussed not to let a baby, which I am guilty of as well, fall asleep on the breast or with the bottle in its mouth, because then the baby isn't really learning to sleep on their own, right?
Yeah. So what a big problem that I encounter in the clinic is when babies have a feeding sleeping association. So they're either fed to sleep and they're put in the crib totally unconscious, or they're fed to such a sort of semi-conscious state that they don't actually have to work that hard to put themselves to sleep. And the trouble with that is when they wake in the night and they're wide awake screaming, they're relying on that semi-conscious state in order to put themselves back to sleep, and they require the breast or the bottle in order to achieve that.
Sometimes I get gassy. Well, I know not as much with breast, but with breast is best. No, with when they fall asleep with the bottle, sometimes I know my daughter projectile vomit all the time. So does it give them gas and make them more comfortable at night as well?
Yeah. So for babies who have colic and reflux, it's especially important to feed them earlier on in the bedtime routine, so that you're not feeding them and then putting them right to bed. That they have the chance to be upright and digest the milk before they go right into bed. So that's another important reason why it's better to feed the baby earlier in the bedtime routine as opposed to the last thing before you put them in the crib.
And I have one other question. I know this isn't related to the sleep, but I was just thinking about it, that I remember with my daughter, when they're congested and now it's spring and in the winter and they're not feeling well, and I know that you have to suction their nose and stuff. What do you suggest? I know that they had things, at the baby stores that you put them upright underneath. I hated it, the white thing, like a pyramid. What do you suggest? Roll up a swaddle and put it under their head, or what, you're laying them flat, or what do you think?
So in general, in terms of sleep safety, nothing really should be in the crib. So there shouldn't be bumpers, there shouldn't be wedges, there shouldn't be blankets rolled up.
Even if the wedges is underneath the...
If it's under the mattress, it's okay, but there should be nothing on them on top of the surface of the mattress. So really, using things like nasal suctioning. If the baby has a temperature, making sure that they have Advil or Tylenol on board so that they're more comfortable. I think those are really the key things. You could have a humidifier in the room, and again, keeping the room at a cooler temperature is better because it's easier to breathe when it's cooler.
Love all of you parents out there, but I'm not jealous of this the baby's state. I'm talking about it. I'm getting all these wave of memories. I'm oh my god. So how does different, obviously it's great that you're a medical physician and that you specialize in sleep. It was covered by OHIP, which is a bonus, but what is really the difference between what you're doing? Do people come to you and then they also have a sleep consultant if they're really having sleep issues, or does it go hand in hand, or is it more of you take place of the sleep consultant? How does that?
So it's a good question. I think that I try to think that what I do is a holistic approach, which incorporates my personal experience as a mom and my academic and professional experiences as a physician. And so when I see a new parent for the first time, the thing that I always start with is how the parent is doing, and we do a depression scale because many parents experience postpartum mood disturbance because of all the change and the sleeplessness. And so one thing that I always start off with is doing a depression scale to get a sense of how the caregivers are doing. Because I really feel that if the parents are not supported, then it's really difficult for the child to thrive and do well. So I start off with that. And then, like you talked about, some of the sleep hygiene things, so laying a foundation, that's really my focus. So my focus isn't so much on sleep training, but it's about laying the foundation so parents understand, the idea of wake windows, how to ensure their baby's not overtired.
So interesting, right?
How to ensure that they don't have a feeding-sleeping association. And then once those foundational things are in place, then we talk about how to actually get the child to fall asleep independently, which is where the coaching or training comes in.
Right. And what are, for some of the viewers out there, I know that there's a lot of moms with twins. I have a friend that's not sleeping. What are some of the warning signs of postpartum depression? Just for people that don't people are in denial and they don't really I think some people have, is it possible to have like a little bit of postpartum and not full blown?
Yeah.
Like, because I think a lot of people, like, no, I'm fine, but they are having the blues, it's hard staying up, which is why I started Pink and Blue, connection for moms.
So I think it's, it's a range, like you say. So there's, what we call postpartum blues, which is sort of on the more mild end, and then there's postpartum depression, which is actually a clinical diagnosis that has particular criteria. And so I would say, the moms that I see, we talk about, how their mood is. So are they feeling sad? Are they feeling low? And some women use the terminology depressed. Some women have a personal history of mental health issues. They may have, anxiety and depression, which predate pregnancy and the postpartum period. And we talk about motivation and interest, and engaging with other people, because being a new parent can be so isolating, especially when you're so exhausted. You don't want to engage with other people and be social. So we talk a lot about interaction with other people, and are they getting out there. We talk about support systems. Are they supported by their partner? Are they supported by family, friends? And then the most important thing is, of course.
Sorry guys, this is what happens when you're live. You're seeing it real and authentic.
So the most important thing we talk about is, are these caregivers having thoughts about hurting themselves or hurting their child? That's, from a medical standpoint, that's sort of most serious and most important piece. And it's not often that is something that people experience, but it's important to give people the space to talk about it.
Right.
So I'd say I see a spectrum of, people feeling, just not at their best because they're so overtired, which is typical,
right.
To people feeling really sort of isolated and not having friends, not having family around, not having supports. And
what it like besides do they go on medication? Do you send them to a therapist? Like what are the best ways to deal with it? Especially being overtired, it's kind of goes with the course of being a new mom.
So in terms of my role, so I make sure that they have a physician who's seeing them, whether it's a primary care provider like their general practitioner, or whether they're involved with mental health support services. Do they have a psychiatrist, a psychologist, social worker? And if they don't have those supports, then I try to link with their family doctor to connect them with these resources. And then in terms of my role, of course, helping them to achieve better sleep has a positive impact on their mood ultimately. So that's my piece.
Right. You have a lot on your shoulders. So how much sleep does a baby actually need? I know that you said that there's the week windows.
Yeah.
But I can't remember. I actually can't remember right now. I'm like drawing a blank of how. I know that you feed them every 3 hours, right?
Yeah. So at the beginning they're feeding more frequently. It can be anywhere from 1 hour to 2 hours, 3 hours. Really in the first 4 months of life, infant sleep doesn't resemble adult sleep. So they don't obviously sleep through the night unless you have a unicorn baby, but they're waking frequently to eat, and their sleep cycles are very short. So even though they may, you may identify a period of nighttime for them, it's not like they go to bed at 7 and they wake up at 7 in the morning. It's sort of day and night is almost a continuous occurrence. But what's really important is that babies are, in order to be well rested, that they're sleeping at regular intervals throughout the day. So for example, a 6-month-old should not be awake for a period of more than 2 hours. And so you want to make sure that every it's all surprising.
I wish I could.
No, my daughter doesn't.
Yeah.
She never slept
So what I tell parents of 6-month-olds is that from the time that they wake up, let's say that they wake up at 6 in the morning, their first nap should be at 8. And depending on when they wake up, if they wake up at 9 from their nap, the next nap should be at 11. And basically from the moment that they wake up in the morning until the moment that they go to sleep, you should be following those wake windows in order to ensure that they're not overtired.
Right.
And then as they get older, what you start to see is the first stretch of the night becomes a longer stretch. So they may sleep, 3 or 4 hours at the onset of sleep at, whenever bedtime is. And usually that's a little bit later when they're younger. And then they're still doing those frequent wakings from, let's say midnight until the early morning hours. But the first thing that you see is the first stretch of the night strengthening and lengthening, and then eventually it sort of lengthens. Yes, it lengthens throughout the night, and then it resembles, how we sleep, or we sleep from, whatever our bedtime is until our waking hours.
Do you think that it also depends on like how much? I breastfed for 3 months, but I add a supplement and I have enough milk, so. Does it matter like if they're getting formula versus breast milk, or how much how full they are, any of that?
It shouldn't matter whether they're getting formula or whether they're getting breast milk. I mean, I think, people talk about if you feed your baby formula, you have more control over how much the baby's eating because you can measure if the baby's eating 3 ounces or 4 ounces or 5 ounces. And that they're more full because formula is more of like a milkshake. People always talk about that. But in reality, as long as the baby's getting what they need, that shouldn't be interfering with their ability to stay asleep.
Is anyone asking any questions?
Yeah, we have one. I just want to
Oh,
look
yay.
It's about talking about sleep regressions. It sounds like it's a 4-month.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get to the exact question, but let's see here.
What about dream feeding?
So dream feeding is really important.
Question from the audience over here.
That's a great question. So dream feeding is so the concept of a dream feed is that you choose a time, usually it's between 11 and midnight, a time when the parent may still naturally be awake or as they're getting ready to go to sleep.
Or the husband.
Whoever, it doesn't have to be the mom, it can be the dad, or it doesn't matter who it is.
The parental unit.
The parental unit. And that the idea is that you feed the baby, so you go into the baby's room while the baby's still asleep, you pick them up from their bassinet or their crib, you feed them so you don't engage with them, you don't wake them, you don't change them, and then they return back to sleep. And the whole idea is that you're not feeding them in response to them crying. And so by doing that, you're not furthering the feeding-sleeping association that we talked about. So you're dictating the feed, so you know that your child is getting the feed that they need overnight, depending on their age. They may need one or more than one feed. And you also know that you're not feeding them in response to them crying, and it's not perpetuating that cycle of them crying and being fed, crying and being fed.
But wouldn't you want to, is there a certain age when you would start dream feeding, or is it something?
So usually I suggest that people dream feed, start to dream feed around the time that they're thinking about sleep training. It's a good question. So, in terms
These are good questions, guys. From the dad over there.
In terms of when people, choose to sleep train their baby, there's a lot of, there's a huge range. I see parents who are wanting to sleep train a 4-month-old, a 6-month-old, an 8-month-old, 1 year. It really depends.
My 3-year-old.
3-year-old.
6-year-old.
But usually it tends to be something that's better with younger babies. So often, parents who are sleep training their baby between the ages of, let's say, 4 and 7 or 8 months will do a dream feed. And it's really variable in terms of how long you keep that dream feed.
Do you support that idea, or do you
I think
because it sounds like it's a little contradictory to like some of the that you want like up to 6 months it should be only every 2 hours, like they should be feeding.
No, I
it's
think
kind of like goes against that, right?
No, I think it's a useful tool in younger babies. So as babies get older, they actually don't need to eat in the night. But babies who are younger, particularly between 4 and 6 months, they often need to eat. Not every baby, but they need to eat 1 to 2 times a night. And so by doing a dream feed, you're again not reinforcing that feeding sleeping association so that the baby doesn't become confused. How come she's feeding me at 11, but when I cry at 2, she's not feeding me? And so that's the principle behind the dream feed.
And then what's the best part of the dream feed? That you get to sleep too.
Exactly, and your partner does it for you.
But the other thing is going back to getting your kid to sleep independently.
Yeah.
So what are the tools? I know that you said things of not to do, but what would help the baby sleep independently?
So, like we sort of touched on, the most important things are that when you go to actually teach your baby how to fall asleep independently, that they have the foundational skills. So they don't have the feeding sleeping association, and they're well rested. Because if you go to sleep train a baby who's exhausted, they're going to protest and cry a lot harder and a lot longer than they would if they were well rested.
Right.
So once you have those foundations in place, then there are 2 general approaches in terms of how to sleep train a baby. So there's an approach called extinction, which is cried out, where you put the baby in the crib, you close the lights, you put on the sound machine, which is something that's important.
I back that one.
And you leave the room and you don't come back until the morning. And the thing about that approach is that it works quite quickly because there's no parental intervention. But it's obviously very hard for a lot of parents to comply with. And if you're not able to be consistent, no approach is going to work. So I sort of see my role as outlining all the different ways that sleep training can be done, and then parents choose something that's consistent with their beliefs and what they think they can be consistent with.
Or that works with the baby too.
Exactly. So extinction is one method, and then every other method falls under a category called graduated extinction, where there is varying levels of parental involvement. So there are, methods. There's a popular method called the Ferber method, where you put the baby in the crib, you turn out the lights, you turn on the sound machine, you leave the room, and you stand right outside the door. And it's a 7-day method whereby on the first night you wait for 3 minutes, let them cry for 3 minutes, then you go in and you're in there and you soothe them just until they've calmed down, not until they're back to sleep. Then you leave the room. Then the next interval is 5 minutes. And every other interval that night is
amazing, people. We did it.
10 minutes. And then the second night it starts at 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes. And so there's a prescribed method for doing this over 7 nights. So that's one method which involves being present in the room at times.
Do you like the Ferber method?
I think I don't have a preference over one method over the other. I think as long as it's something that's consistent with your values, and as long as you can be consistent, that's all that really matters. I don't think that one method is, more ideal. Some parents say that the more parental intervention, they find it more difficult for the baby because the baby says, "Are they coming to get me?" It's hard for the baby to understand what's happening. Other people find it really useful because the baby's comforted by their presence, and the baby, maybe used to, knows they're still there. They may be used to co-sleeping, or the crib may be in the room, and so all of a sudden, for the parent to be absent is a really big transition. So I think again, you have to choose a method that you feel comfortable with.
Do you think cry it out has psychological damage as they get older, with anxiety, or
No.
I know that there's been studies.
There have been studies that have shown that it does not.
Okay.
So that's not my concern.
For all the
with
80s
cry out.
babies, that's they said, "Well, we're all screwed up." No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not concerned with
Right.
any method for that reason. And really, unless you have a unicorn baby, most babies don't independently learn to fall asleep. It's a skill. I tell parents, like anything else, like teaching your kids how to be good people, how to eat with utensils. Most babies are not born knowing how to fall asleep and stay asleep independently.
Right. But the one thing that I found, which obviously is still a problem for us, is so Sienna would fall asleep,
Yeah.
and then we would do Ferber, and it worked great. And then a few months later, she's a little older, and then you have a whole new set of issues. So as they get older, it keeps changing, and you have to keep reapplying the same things. Or if you go away on a vacation and then you have to come back, and they have to learn. So is there any advice for consistency, or?
I think the most important thing is to, for parents to recognize that, their kids are going to have fever, they're going to teeth, they're going to learn new developmental skills, they're going to learn to crawl and learn to stand, and those things are going to interfere with their ability to fall asleep, and they're going to learn to practice their skills and jump out of the crib and do all of these things. And I think that really, like you alluded to, you often have to come back to the methods temporarily if you've gotten off track. But I think where parents really run into trouble is when they get off track, and it's not just 1 or 2 days that they're off track, but it becomes a month and 2 months. And then before they know it, they're sleeping in the room again with the kid, they're feeding the kid to sleep, they're doing all the things.
Or just letting them sleep in their bed.
Letting them sleep in their bed, exactly.
Yeah.
So, what I tell people
Or
is
they're
that,
stressed, yeah.
of course, if baby is teething or has a fever, you attend to them, of course.
Right.
But at the soonest opportunity to get back on track, you do that so that it doesn't become a new habit.
Right.
So babies, can get into bad habits very quickly, and so you don't want to give them the opportunity to, get back into their old ways. So as soon as possible, and as much as you can preserve the training that you've done. So even if it means that even if they're teething and they wake up in the night, you can still encourage them to fall asleep on their own at the beginning of sleep by making sure that if they're uncomfortable, that they have Advil or Tylenol, or that they have their favorite Lovey. Or whatever it is.
Lose a lovey. Best advice, people, is get multiple loveys.
Yes,
I
yes.
only have one for each kid, and
Yeah.
if we lose it, they're like, "I think I'm home." We're like, "It does not leave the house."
Yeah. And in terms of sleep environment, loveys are something that I encourage a lot. And a lovey is really a support. It could be a support blanket. It could be an animal, as long as it's crib safe. There are no buttons, no zippers, nothing that can fall off, nothing that can be a
Indigo has
chokehold.
great ones.
A suffocation hazard is, really important, and there are, loveys that are marketed as loveys and meant to be that.
Right.
So that's a really good support for babies, and they often will rub it in their face, they're used to having the bottle of the breast in their face, and it's a comfort for them, especially when they go from, sleeping or being close to the caregiver to being independent.
And I know that I might be a little gross, but I put my breast milk on the lovey and put it in my baby's crib so that it'll smell like me.
Yeah.
Do you advise that?
Yeah, parents can sleep with the
People
lovey
might
before
think it's a little weird, but
No,
it works.
parents often will sleep with the lovey. for a couple of nights before they introduce it, and I suggest that when you're introducing a lovey, to introduce it at times of relaxation. So when you're reading to baby before bed, when you're feeding baby, and so baby gets used to this thing being around, and then you start to introduce it to the crib. And at a younger age, they may not really connect with it or show any affection towards it, but they become used to it, and as they get older, it's a real.
You can't leave the house without it.
Yeah.
What was the question that they
It's
had?
talking about probably like a sleep regression around that 4 month.
Yeah.
Like it seems to be that first year has a few milestones. I think you
Yes.
were saying with
Yeah.
the developmental stuff, and
Yeah.
they have a little setback. A lot of it's coined as like the 3 month, 4 month, 6 months regression. I
Yes.
think that's what the lady was.
Yeah. So sleep regression, so like you alluded to, there are many sleep regressions that happen, and usually they happen around times when there's a developmental change. So the baby may be learning a new skill like rolling or sitting up, crawling, pulling themselves to stand. So often during those periods, sleep becomes very disrupted, and babies wake frequently, or they wake up earlier in the morning, or they may fight going to sleep. And that's why often around 4 months during that sleep regression, people may have had babies who have slept fairly decently until that time, and then there's a regression, and they come in and say like, I can't be up every hour, I'm used to getting at least 3 hours, my baby's waking up every hour. And usually parents will tolerate that for a period, and then they realize change needs to happen. So that tends to be why there is a lot of parents looking for support around that time.
Or at that time when it was
Yeah.
going well, and then it.
So what do you do to
Exactly.
get them to, like, what do you need to change?
So, often it involves, there is some, so it involves changing these foundations. So a lot of parents are not aware of wake windows, are not aware of the, feeding sleeping association. So we talk about making those changes. And then if parents are still experiencing difficulty, then we talk about the different ways that babies can be sleep trained.
Wow, you're just a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
Honestly, I thought this was a great show. It's great for the audience, but really, it's like amazing all the different tactics. So Dr. Alanna Golden is working at Kidcrew, and you're also you work out of the hospital as well. But I know you don't see patients probably at the hospital. That's
No.
for,
So I work at Kidcrew at Bathurst and St. Clair, which is a new pediatric dental and medical clinic.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Dr. Lori Goldenberg is a dentist, so she's a
Yes.
friend of mine.
Yes.
My kids
She's
love
my
her.
daughter's
Yeah.
dentist.
The kids are so excited to go. They have like this amazing playroom area, right?
Yeah.
And it's like funny, like the kids don't want to leave.
Yeah.
You're going to the doctor and the dentist, and they don't want to leave.
Yeah,
But it's
very
beautiful.
fun, yeah. So I'm there on Tuesdays, and I see parents. Originally, I was just seeing parents with infants between 0 and 12, but I've expanded it to 18 months now. So I'm seeing.
What about to 3?
What about the
That's
six?
the next step. Slowly, people
What are
say,
you doing? What are you doing tonight?
What are you doing tonight? I say I don't do pets. I don't do older kids.
Our daughter sleeps with us
I have a 6-year-old that I need to.
every night.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was telling her.
So
It's,
slowly. I just started about 6 weeks ago. So slowly.
And how old are your boys?
4.5 and 19 months.
Okay. Are you still sleeping?
They're sleeping through the night.
Good. So, does anyone else have any other questions for Dr.?
I can't see.
No? Okay, so we will check in. Well, you have to check on the other phone? It's not coming up. We'll see if anyone else has any other questions. But if you do have any other questions, you could always PM you on Facebook. Well, it's under Alanna Golden.
Yeah.
And in addition, you could always private message me or email us at info@pinkandbluemag.com. And hopefully you'll write a few articles for us on this on www.pinkandbluemag.com. And we have a lot of sleep content on our site as well. And there's different sleep consultants. I really think that, having the approaches that you have, and if you get into as bad of a position I'm in, and you've regressed after a vacation, not followed, the sleep routines, that it would be beneficial to work with somebody like yourself, a doctor and a sleep consultant. But thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
Do you have any other questions from the audience over here?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Is we went to Florida and we decided to take our daughter out of the crib because my mom didn't have a crib, and that's it.
Yeah.
and she wouldn't, and she could just get out of the
Well,
bed
was
so
at 2 years old.
she could get out of the bed so
Well, that's
easily.
another thing. Do you do anything
Yeah.
like, do you see people like, and then you see only younger babies?
So younger
like,
babies, but one thing, which is with the crib, you know, that's something that
that's
people
a big
ask about a
transition,
lot.
is switching
Huge
from,
transition, and I think that, you know, parents are often eager for many reasons. They may have a second on the way and they need the crib, so they need to take the baby out of their toddler out of the crib. But, you know, what I tell people is to keep the baby in the crib as long as possible and as long as it's safe, because then you don't have the issues with the baby being, you know, with the toddler coming in and out and in and out. And I find that if you move them when they're older and they have a maturity, they understand better that it's nighttime, they need to sleep independently, they need to be in their bed. So I moved my son when he was 3.5 into a bed. I kept him, that was the best advice that someone gave me, keep him in the crib as long as possible.
Right. So like, did you convert it to like the half crib and?
yeah, that's what we did.
That's what we did. We were so
converted to
dumb.
the crib.
Because our other one was just so easy.
No, we converted, she was the same age actually, but we
No,
converted
it's
to
so
the
easy.
crib.
It was so easy.
And then we had the mattress on the floor,
Yeah,
and then we did the big girl bed.
yeah,
And now she's 3.5, so
I don't think
that
it's
was
so-
over from between 2 to 3.5.
yeah, I don't think it so much matters how you do it. I think it's more about the emotional maturity of the toddler.
Right.
And then if you move them when they don't have that emotional maturity, they're more likely to do things like, you know, come leave the room frequently, call for you, things like that. I think if you have an older baby, an older toddler, when you move them, they're more likely to stay in the bed. And then as they get older, you can use, you know, supportive devices like the grow clock, which is really beneficial. Whereas when they're younger, they don't have the understanding to be able to comply.
Right.
I'm just laughing. Because my daughter is like not the grow clock. It'd be no.
Doesn't work.
Yeah,
No,
it's kind of
she's-
that magic, introducing it at that magic time where
Right.
they're old enough, but they're not too old to say this is silly, I'm not gonna pay attention.
Yeah, exactly.
But they love that. They
Yeah.
like Sienna wakes up in the morning, the first thing, Mommy, it's morning time, and it's like, and at nighttime it's a problem because it stays lighter out,
Yeah.
and she doesn't understand. But it's not dark yet. It's not
Yeah.
bedtime. So I give all of you guys my love and support, because not sleeping is the worst thing ever, and having sleep issues. I don't envy any of you that are not sleeping, but I am not either. So when I do get a full night's sleep, I am a different person. That's why I live on coffee. It's probably my 4th cup today. But thank you again.
Pleasure.
It was awesome
Pleasure.
having you, and I'm sure all of the moms enjoyed hearing all of your wonderful advice. Have a good evening.
Okay.